What's happening, everybody? Thanks for tuning back in. This one is going to be going over the market in general. We're going to talk about Bitcoin, kind of where we're at. Obviously, we're seeing a heavy retracement. The Bitcoin dominance is definitely rising. I think we're probably going to be seeing 50% pretty soon here. And then kind of just what are we supposed to be doing in this situation, right? Like, are you trading your altcoins? Are you still running your bot? It becomes difficult because in this quote unquote bull run that we just saw in the month of July, we saw Bitcoin rise, 30, 40%, something like that from its relative lows. But you didn't see a lot of the altcoins as a whole gain as much ground as Bitcoin did. So if you weren't holding Bitcoin and you were holding these other altcoins, you weren't really making as much as you could have made. And then now when Bitcoin takes a dive, it's only jumped about 7-8%, which is, granted, it's a decent chunk of change that has left Bitcoin's pocket for the time being. But a lot of these altcoins are just plummeting even harder than Bitcoin. And so that leaves you in another peculiar situation where you were holding these altcoins that were underperforming Bitcoin, and then now, they're losing quicker than Bitcoin. So it becomes difficult. You're ending up in bags right now, and that's just the way it is. There's a few things that we can do to help that, and I'm actively working on settings for that. So I will be creating another video sometime this week, within the next couple of days, and I'll throw out another settings video to kind of try and help combat this. One of the easiest ways off the top of my head is start using. I don't want to tell anybody to use Tether, but if you trust Tether, this is a way that you can really kind of hedge yourself from these ups and downs in Bitcoin and in your altcoins as well. So let's just kind of jump into the charts here. We're seeing a heavy retracement. How far is this? How far have we gone since our relative high is about 11 or 12%? To me, this doesn't look awful. Now, what I'm looking at here is the daily chart on Bitcoin. We've cooled off a lot on the RSI, which is a good sign. We definitely needed that, especially after this epic bull run that we were kind of on for some time here in July. We definitely we have our Elliott wave count here. This isn't anything, it's not 100% perfect. I'm not saying this is for sure the way it's playing out, but as you can see, we're looking at this yellow is the 100-day moving average, and right now we're bouncing off of it. So if this can hold as a support, that would be phenomenal. These two white lines here was our channel that we drew a few days ago back in this time frame, and we bounced off that 200-day, and then we just cut through it like butter. And so when we cut through this 200-day moving average, this guy, we cut through that like butter, and I expected us to dip well into this lower channel, and that's what happened. So that's what I said in my last video. You can go back. If we cut through the 200-day, I said that we're probably going to go and test this 100-day. So now we're testing this 100-day EMA, and we're getting real close to this 0.382 line on our FID levels, right? So this should hold as decent support, especially considering that this was previous resistance. So we can talk about that. And not only do we have this previous resistance here, but we have this longer term blue line that I drew, which is also previous resistance in this longer term trend that we're looking at. So if we zoom back in, we can see that these lines really closely, they're getting really close to overlapping, right? So it's not all three at once. If I move this up and move this around, we can get that would be perfect, right? Somewhere like that, you would know there'd be a real nice bounce. It's not the way it is. It's not the way it plays out. It never is perfect. But we're definitely seeing this area in here could potentially form a nice bouncing point, and this can be a real nice four wave that we're forming. The reason I drew this as an Elliott wave count like I did is if you go into the lower time frames, you can snag 5 waves up on the 1. You can get a nice ABC corrective down to the 2. You can get 5 waves up on the 3 wave. You get an ABC down on the 4, and it all seems to line up nicely with kind of with the Elliott wave theory. So that's kind of why I'm looking at it like this. Granted, what could happen, and this is another thing that a lot of people are talking about, is we could cut right through this like butter as well, and we could continue down. And if we break this 7,300 mark, somewhere right in here, I think we are probably going down further. And that's what some people are saying too. If you bring it out to the weekly, a lot of people who are trading the more longer term time frames, or looking at this from definitely a more macro trend, a lot of people are saying that the weekly is still pretty bearish, and that's okay. I would really like to see this play out and us to form a higher low somewhere in this range. So if this weekly candle can finish off, somewhere in this higher low area, that would be fantastic. And then we can kind of see this market reversal actually happening, because we had this weekly low at, 5,800, which was back, what is that, June 25th. That's when I guess it would be the 18th would be our ultimate low. And so that would be really nice to see us form a higher low, and then we can continue. This would be a higher high right here, and then we can continue and kind of dig our way out of this mess that we're in since the all-time high of this negative 70%. So, there is good news. The RSI has definitely cooled off. Even on the weekly, on the daily as well. If you bring it down into the 4-hour, this Elliott wave count definitely makes more sense. You can go in and mark up the waves as you see fit. This is just a rough drawing. And I just wanted to kind of bring this to light. So obviously on the 4-hour, we're super oversold. That doesn't mean that we're just going to stop selling here and jump in now because we're oversold. Because I've talked about this in previous videos as well, is the RSI can go overextended in both directions. You can see it was extremely overextended here, and then we continued up. So, the RSI isn't the end all be all indicator, but it gives you an idea of kind of where we're headed. So I'm looking for some nice support in this area, and that's kind of what I said in previous videos. So what happened? Why did the price fall like this? A lot of people are saying, it has to do with futures contracts. It's the end of the month and all this stuff. As far as I'm concerned, I think the futures contracts close on the 18th of every month, which is what they show here. So I'm not sure the futures contract really played any roles in this. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I found this article that says, it has a whole bunch of different information about, why the markets are tumbling. I'm not really sure I fully agree with this article either. It's on Forbes. It's nothing fantastic, but they talk about, crypto markets have seen rapid growth, but they're not well enough prepared in terms of security. This came out of South Korea, I believe, today. And then we had, some investors have been rattled this week by reports that bank-owned currency trading utility CLS, along with enterprise software giant IBM, are teaming up to trial a blockchain-based Ledger Connect, an application that offers services from different vendors with some 9 financial institutions, which is really good. So like Barclays, Citigroup, they're involved in this. But then I guess there was some more bearish news coming out of this information up here due to, I forget, I read this like an hour ago. So I'll leave this in the description, but long story short, it had to do with, right here. So the electricity, there's just bearish sentiment about, the FUD about, Bitcoin costs too much money to mine. It's too intensive on the power grid and all this stuff, which I think is going to be old news in the future. But then they at the end of the article, which is funny, they always do this, is they talk about, bullish news. Oh, the SEC is currently weighing whether to approve an ETF. And then like the poll, according to a poll of 2,000 base US investors, only 2% say they currently own Bitcoin and less than 1% plan to buy in the near future, which means that there's a huge market of people who haven't bought Bitcoin yet. I actually just think this is just market patterns. I think this is normal. I think we're supposed to correct, a 4-wave has to happen if this is a true Elliott wave count. So if this is not a true Elliott wave count, we continue down. Hopefully we find some support at the 6,700 mark. That would be ideal, which we should find some sort of support in this area. future price action dictates future results sometimes, not all the time. But yeah, I just wanted to bring this up. Keep an eye out of where we're at. You know, don't be hungry to just jump in, but this is what I'm looking at. And I'm kind of in a no trade zone still. I said when we have a break in either direction, I'm going to reevaluate. That's what I'm doing. I'm reevaluating. I'm waiting to see if this 4-wave plays out. And if it does, great. You know, if we can bounce up that 0.382 line, great news. If we dip down to the 0.5, that's okay too. We just need to find some sort of solid support. And then we'll start to see this RSI turn over. Then we can start to look at the other indicators and get an idea of, all right, when are we stopping? When is this downtrend stopping? So with that said, I'm going to be making another video this week on Profit Trailer, those settings, the PT feeder settings. I'm going to be talking about Defender. You know, they're kind of tailored. The settings are tailored towards Defender. So, I mean, that's what I'm using. I'm using it to bust through these bags, and we kind of need it now more than ever, especially because I'm trading Bitcoin pairs. I also have a USDT bot going, but I'm trading Bitcoin pairs for the most part. And when you get into these situations, like I said earlier, you know, these altcoins are bleeding harder than Bitcoin, and that makes it tough on your bags. So, you know, we need that more than ever to kind of be honed in and dial in our settings. So with that said, join the Discord group. We're in there constantly talking about all of this stuff. We're doing TA in there. It's all free. Just join up, join the conversation. We have a cool group of guys in there, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Take it easy, everybody.